Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee. I'm Reverend Dena McPhetres, and I'm honored, as always, to serve as Associate Minister and to welcome you to our online worship service today. At First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee, we welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all you are carrying with you and all your heart longs to set down. During the COVID-19 public health emergency, all First Church activities have been postponed or moved online. So unfortunately, we're not able to meet in person yet. Summer worship services begin today at 9 a.m. only, going all the way through the summer. We offer all ages religious education every Sunday at 10 a.m. online, with pre-K and kindergarten at 11 a.m. During the summer, youth group meets online at 4 p.m. on just the first Sunday of each month. So take note of those changes for pre-K kindergarten and for youth group. You can find the links in your live stream chat now or in the RE weekly updates. Sign up for that update to find out more about family ministry and religious education for children and youth. Join us for a virtual coffee hour this morning after service, where we chat in small groups on video conference. You can find the Zoom meeting link in the live stream chat or the Friday announcements. Visitors and members and friends are encouraged to connect. Just bring your own coffee. Please join the ministers to connect and reflect this Thursday evening at 6 to 7 p.m. on Zoom, and you can find the link in your announcements. We have corrected it. Thank you for your patience. And you have one more opportunity to join Reverend Jennifer for lunch with the senior minister on Facebook Live on Monday between 12 and 12:30 p.m. on our First Church Facebook group. Please be sure to show up for that, because the next week you'll be stuck with me. You can join our First Church Facebook group as another way to connect. Once again, I welcome you to our worship service by inviting you to repeat our mission after me. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. These opening words are a bit playful. They are called Mess Around, written by Phil Porter. Fooling around. That's how most things get started. Babies and other good ideas. Play is the mess of relating improbable partners, bumping, colliding. It can be dangerous, but don't let that stop you. Can you play? The big challenge is not to fix the mess with ideas of how things should be, or worse, as others say they should look. Fool around, play around, mess around. An artist's job is to mess a step ahead of ourselves, ahead of our pictures, surprising ourselves with all this bumping up against things. Me against you, past against present, human against holy, foot against sky. Fun is chasing a thread through chaos. Let's return to our beautiful sanctuary to watch Reverend Jennifer light the chalice, our symbol of Unitarian Universalism. As we enter into a time of spoken meditation, followed by shared silence, followed by singing Spirit of Life, I invite you to find a way wherever you are to ground yourself. Perhaps you can put your feet on the floor. Maybe find a way to lift your spine so you can breathe deeply. And let your hands come to a resting place. This short poem is by Denise Levertov. As you listen to it, I invite you to imagine a space for yourself where your burdens are lifted and you can rest with no effort. As swimmers dare to lie face to the sky and water bears them, as hawks rest upon air and air sustains them, so would I learn to attain free fall and float. Float into Creator Spirit's deep embrace, knowing no effort earns that all surrounding grace. Let's return to our sanctuary where Reverend Jennifer rings the meditation bowl to gather us into shared silence, followed by singing Spirit of Life.
Good morning. My name is Dale Skaggs, and I am happy to serve as worship associate today. When I first saw that our theme for this month was play, my first thought was, how in the world do we find ways to play when it feels like the world is ending? And how to tell a story from experience when unprecedented seems to describe the time. But my experience reminded me that every disaster feels unprecedented, and sometimes play can open the back door in our houses of worry and welcome an ally named resilience. Some years ago, I found myself in a situation for which I felt totally unprepared. For weeks, I'd been constantly challenged by difficult problems and by worried, scared, and sometimes angry people who just needed help. I was feeling inadequate, exhausted, and like I was about to implode. But then some wise friends saved me. They called me one evening and said, "You need to come out and play with us." It was September 2005, and it seemed there were disasters all over the US. It was the second worst wildfire season since 1960. Hurricane Katrina had flooded 80% of New Orleans. And 3 weeks later, Hurricane Rita displaced thousands more people and forced the relocation of dozens of shelters that the American Red Cross had opened after Katrina. Facing unprecedented need, the Red Cross rapidly trained and deployed thousands of volunteers. I was one of them. And late that month, I joined the disaster relief effort in East Texas. That first night, I slept under a desk in the Houston Red Cross headquarters. After that, I slept on the floor in the kindergarten room of the Worcester Baptist Church in Baytown, where the gymnasium sheltered hundreds of people. Within 24 hours of my arrival at that shelter, it was clear that the disaster relief effort there was, well, something close to a disaster. The first manager had flamed out and gone home. His replacement was seldom to be found, having delegated his duties to a duty manager for the day. Not only had that new manager exaggerated his qualifications, he was asking volunteers to turn over their expense debit cards. The Red Cross region director got wind of this, came out to the shelter, and promptly sent that manager home. Then she came to me and said she wanted me to take over as shelter manager. I said, "Fran, I'm brand new at this. I wouldn't know where to begin." She just listened, and then she said pleasantly, "Come walk with me to the staff meeting. I'll give you some advice along the way and introduce you. And by the way, I'll be out of town for the next 4 days." It was brutal. Almost all the volunteers were as inexperienced as I. The local Red Cross staff were talented, experienced, and dedicated professionals, but they were also exhausted and nearly overwhelmed by the scope of the disasters. One situation neatly describes what we were up against. A shelter resident was overdue for kidney dialysis, and one of my team had finally found a clinic in Houston that could help him, but we had no transportation. I called the Red Cross region office and asked who we could call for help. After a long pause came the reply, "Well, people usually call the Red Cross for that." As I said, it was brutal, but I had made a pact with 3 or 4 of my team that we would honestly tell each other when we saw signs of burnout from stress. I did that for them a few times with quiet talk and encouragement. And they did it for me when they called and said, "This is an intervention. You have to come to this tavern and sing karaoke with us." I had never sung karaoke before, and I've never done it since. But that night I spent 2 hours with those wonderful, wise people in a wonderful spirit of play and laughter. Those 2 hours were more restorative than 6 or 8 hours of sleep could possibly have been. That time of pure play refilled my cup of resilience so I could go back and do the work.
1, 2, 3.
Thank you, Frogwater. And thank you, Dale, for that meaningful story. Well, on this topic of play, I am wondering when and where in your life do you play? Do you play with your children? Do you play sports? Do you go bird watching? Do you make art or music or dance? Do you play in the kitchen with cooking or baking? Do you play board games or card games? Do you fly kites? Do you invent new things? Do you play with dreams and visions of a better and more just society? Do you play with creative ways to achieve those dreams and visions? What is play? Stuart Brown, producer of a PBS series, The Promise of Play, lists several characteristics or properties of play. He says play is apparently purposeless, done for its own sake. Play is voluntary. It has an inherent attraction. It's fun and makes you feel good. Play gives us freedom from time. While playing, we lose a sense of the passage of time. We have a diminished consciousness of self while we play. We are in the present moment. Play has a potential for improvisation. We are open to chance. We stumble upon new ways of being. We have fresh insights. And play has, he says, a continuation of desire, which means we want to keep doing it. Brown wrote in his book, Play, how it shapes the brain, opens the imagination, and invigorates the soul. The genius of play is that in playing, we create imaginative, new cognitive combinations. And in creating those novel combinations, we find what works. He goes on to tell this story. One biologist who studied river otters decided to train some of them to swim through a hoop by offering a food reward for completing the task. Shortly after the otters learned to do this, the animals started introducing their own twists to the task. They swam through the hoop backward and waited to see if they got a reward. They swam through and then turned around and swam back the other way. They swam halfway through and stopped. After each variation, they waited expectantly to see if this version of the task would earn a reward or not. Through their behavior, the otters were testing the system. They were learning the rules of the game, the rules that govern the world. But otters are naturally extremely playful and are always attracted to new and interesting things. Their natural search for novelty and avoidance of boredom leads them to try the task a number of different ways. By having fun and mixing it up, the otters were learning far more about the way their world works than if they had simply performed the initial task flawlessly. It's a lesson we all could learn. There are probably many lessons we could learn from playing, but many of us adults don't play very often. I wonder, when and where is play encouraged in your family and community? When and where is play discouraged? To state the obvious, play seems to be encouraged wherever there are children. Play is encouraged for all ages in parks, at the beach, in community sports organizations, at the theater, or while playing music. Play generally seems to be discouraged in church, business, government, politics, and even sometimes in social justice movements. Whenever it is that childhood ends and we become adults, play becomes more circumscribed and less frequent. Or we make our play experiences feel more like work. Brown writes that Runner's World magazine once divided runners into 4 types: the exerciser, the competitor, the enthusiast, and the socializer. The exerciser is someone who runs primarily to lose weight, to stay in shape, and to improve cardiovascular fitness. Nothing wrong with that. The competitor runs to improve race time, to beat others, to make a personal best. Nothing wrong with that either. Enthusiasts run to experience the joy of the day, to feel their muscles working and the air on their face. For the socializer, running is primarily an activity to bring people together for talking, which is the real fun. So when I read that, I thought, there's nothing wrong with any of these approaches to running, but some of them seem more playful. Indeed, Brown analyzed these types of runners by writing, all 4 types are certainly running, but the internal experience can be very different. The enthusiast and the socializer are most likely to be engaged in pure play, pursuing the activity for the joy it brings. The other types may be running mostly in pursuit of goals that can take away the joy from the experience and add stress to their lives. Well, no matter what your play personality might be, many of us experience an internal resistance to play, especially when it takes us out of our comfort zone. 10 years ago, spiritual director Dolores Nice Siegenthaler published an article in Presence, an international journal of spiritual direction. She wrote about the synergy between play and spiritual direction and their relationship to spaciousness. And in that article, she published this short poem that she wrote about her resistance to play. Here's how it goes. Thin-lipped fear sniffs disapproving as fullness opens her arms wide to the moment. Shame, embarrassment, feeling fake, twirl and hover in the air like a dust devil. While love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control lie unnoticed in trash on the ground. Surrender to the moment runs out to the front, while holdback pretends not to notice. The poem expresses the push-pull dynamic many of us have with play. We want play and fear it at the same time. There are many barriers to play, especially for adults. We fear looking or sounding silly. We don't want to be embarrassed. We fear judgment from others and the shame that might blossom within us. Holding back often seems safer. Perhaps thinking about art as play might help us deal with our internal resistance and give us steps or forms to hold us as we risk playing. Writers, artists, actors, and musicians say that the void is actually not a creative space. The empty page, blank canvas can strike fear into the heart of the most seasoned writer or artist. One can clean the entire house while avoiding that empty page. How many of us have done that? Many people whose vocation or career is in the arts say that putting some parameters on play paradoxically frees us to create. Once upon a time, when I played the flute, I suddenly became aware of how my musical training was limited to the notes on the page. Friend wanted me to improvise while she played guitar. I was frozen. I had no clue how to do that. She gently coached me beyond my limits by giving me 3 different notes and telling me to play around with them. Haltingly, I did, and thereby was freed from only one method of making music. Writing prompts are another example of how to enter creative play. The writing workshop I experienced a few years ago used this reliable form. The teacher passed around a basket of small objects. We, the students, each chose an object, and the teacher set a timer and told us to write whatever the object evoked. I wrote what turned out to be a poem, something I had not done for years. Again, a freeing experience. Acting classes often put a few tools to play with in an improvisational sketch. It's been a while since I've done that, but I understand you're given something, a name, a prop, a time of day, a situation, I don't know, maybe a conflict. You have something to play with and some agreements about how to play. You take turns leading and following with the other actors. You go with what is happening and find out where it leads you. I'm less familiar and far more intimidated by visual art making. Yet, while taking an informal class on painting the other summer, I was astonished to find out that you can paint over stuff when you're using acrylics. Very freeing for this perfectionist. I watched a recent video from BBC West News Service and learned about a public artist named David Zinn. Maybe you've heard of him. David Zinn is a professional chalk artist who started drawing on sidewalks because, as he said, he had successfully failed to make art anywhere else. He uses cracks in the sidewalk and random objects that he sees on the street to create public chalk art, incorporating those cracks and objects. The juxtaposition of these things is surprising and delightful. Zinn is a self-taught artist who believes that self-doubt should never be allowed to win. He said, "We are all brilliant artists under the age of 5. Self-doubt is something we learn. But it's fine if you want to throw down your pencil," he said, "and never draw again, because your form of expression may be sculpting or dancing or baking or telling a joke really well or stacking sugar cubes in a precise way, just for the sheer joy of it. And all that counts because it's all creativity and it's all good for your soul." His drawings are improvised on location. He said, "Art on the street is part of your regular life. It's under your feet, something you didn't expect to see." This video asked the question, how important is art during the coronavirus pandemic? Zinn replied, "Science is how we solve problems, but art is how we cope with them," which is good because science often takes a long time to solve problems, he said, and in the meantime, we have to cope. My brain is constantly trying to help to think its way out of this situation by thinking of all the stuff I should be doing and all the stuff I might be doing wrong, making me absolutely miserable. So creativity serves the ability to make that part of your brain stop. Another way that artists are dealing with painful realities is through public mural art. I understand there's a new one being worked on in Milwaukee currently. But what I want to share with you is an article I read from KQED. KQED reported on June 12th that downtown Oakland, California has become an open air art gallery just in the past week as muralists share powerful visual messages in support of Black Lives Matter. A group of artists was busy outlining a massive yellow Black Lives Matter mural covering 3 blocks in downtown Oakland last Saturday night when their work was suddenly interrupted. The artists had the city's permission to paint there, but police arrived and took all their painting materials away. Black artist Brandon Ahees and his younger brother Demarius eventually got their supplies back and were able to finish the mural. He said art provides a nonviolent way to share hard-hitting political messages, and it provides release. And non-muralists are also artists that are making an impact in the movement against police brutality. Twisted Sifter reported on June 10th about a portrait series called Stolen. Stolen is a powerful series by artist Adrian Brandon that is dedicated to Black people that were robbed of their lives at the hands of police. The portraits were first drawn with graphite. Brandon then used time as a medium to define how long each portrait was colored in for. 1 year of life equals 1 minute of color. The gripping results are unfinished portraits of people whose lives were cut short. Artist Brandon explains, Tamir Rice was 12 when he was murdered. So I colored his portrait for 12 minutes. As a person of color, he said, I know that my future can be stolen from me if I'm driving with a broken taillight, or playing my music too loud, or reaching for my phone at the wrong time. So for each of these portraits, I played with a harsh relationship between time and death. I want the viewer to see how much empty space is left in these lives, stories that will never be told, space that can never be filled. This emptiness represents holes in their families and our community, who will be forever stuck with the question, who were they becoming? Sandra Bland, 28 years old, 28 minutes of color. George Floyd, 46 years old, 46 minutes of color. Breonna Taylor, 28 years old, 28 minutes of color. Michael Brown, 18 years old, 18 minutes of color. Brandon said, I feel rushed as I create these pieces. I want to complete their portraits so badly. To be able to see all the layers of colors in their face come to life. Feel a strong sense of panic during the process, which is a feeling Black people experience far too often when engaging with police. The timer, which I cannot see, is always in the back of my mind. How much time is left? When will this be over? I need more time. They deserve more time. I wonder if Brandon began drawing a portrait of Rayshard Brooks this weekend. Last week, I took an interplay class on Zoom called Embodying This Racial Justice Moment. Interplay uses easily accessible forms to unlock the wisdom of the body for play and for justice making in relationship. Those forms make that empty page, that blank canvas accessible. There is an interplay form called Dance on Behalf of, in which one person moves while another person watches and witnesses the movement. Often this form is tailored to a specific request from the person witnessing. But in this class I took, the instruction was simple. Dance on behalf of the person's fullness in this racial justice moment. Well, tears came for me when someone I didn't know did a dance on behalf of my fullness in this racial justice moment. She was a white woman, as I am, standing there in stillness, waiting for the music to begin. She was standing there, simply waiting for the music. Her stillness and presence wasn't planned. It was a technical glitch with Zoom. The music hadn't started. Yet her dance on behalf of had started. And my tears came immediately, even before she started moving. Why? I think the power of another human being, a stranger, holding space for me, brought forth the grief in my body about racism and violence that was just waiting for release. That moment taught me again, although I already knew this, the deep need of human beings to witness each other, to simply hold space, to see, to hear, to notice, and be with it all. Pain, the struggle, the joy, the heartbreak. It reminds me that one of the important things we are doing during this moment of racial justice is witnessing. And it is from the witnessing that more movement comes. And this takes practice. Dolores wrote in that article I mentioned earlier, I'm cultivating the habit of listening to myself and hearing myself, even in the midst of many stories being told at the same time. I begin to notice that I have everything that I need, that I can take another step. I notice and savor my place, my home, my family, my community, and most importantly, my body. This satisfaction or ease opens me more fully to the wisdom of each day and each group I am a part of. What I become more open to is the ability to feel my joys and sorrows and those of others more deeply, and then to act in relation to them. Well, I almost didn't include that last part of her quote. It may sound strange that noticing satisfaction or ease in your life could have anything to do with justice making, but I believe there is a relationship between having your feelings, noticing your place, and feeling others' joy and pain. Noticing their place and their struggle in that place, which then helps us act in relation to them and with them. And this can happen in unexpected and surprising ways. The more practiced we are at play, which is about surprise, discovery, and being fully in the moment, the more open we are to movements for justice, movements in ourselves, shifting our personal places of resistance, and movements with others. Interplay teachers Masanko Banda in Malawi and Jane Ciarni in Chicago noticed recently, we can play with what is making us weary and turn that into how we can get more rest and even move into times for enjoyment and amusement, which are the antonyms of weariness. So, friends, I believe that the antonyms of weariness are what we may need right now to embody our fullness in this racial justice moment and to be in it for the long haul. So may you find your way to play. May play bring you rest, joy, and amusement. And may play bring you into your fullness. And may movement come from there. Let's turn our attention to Dale Skaggs as he invites us into generosity.
Good morning. My name is Dale Skaggs, and I invite you now to join in a spirit of generosity. We know this coronavirus pandemic is affecting our members in many different ways, but for those of us who can give right now, it is more important than ever to share our resources with people who have been harder hit by the pandemic. Our church supports members and friends of our congregation spiritually, emotionally, and materially, and supports people in Milwaukee through our relationships with our community partners. Your pledges are the foundation of our congregation and the core of our spiritual practice of generosity. In addition, we are grateful for non-pledge gifts from folks who appreciate our online ministry and are benefiting from it. We also have a special fund for people who need financial support called the Minister's Discretionary Fund. You can give to the church by texting 73256 with the message "Give to UU $." That's the word give, the number 2, UU $. Follow the prompts and choose pledge payment, non-pledge gift, or minister's discretionary. You can also give to First Church by going to our web-based giving link. That's at onrealm.org/FUSM/give/First You can see both these options on your screen. We also encourage you to give directly to our community partners. You can find a list of their needs on our website at uumilwaukee.org/support-Milwaukeeans-COVID-19, which you can see on your screen. This summer, we are highlighting the work of the Bread of Healing Clinic, a neighborhood-based clinic on Milwaukee's north side for individuals with financial or other barriers to quality health care, including medical, dental, vision, and behavioral health care. The clinic serves people of 52 different languages and is committed to achieving health, not simply eliminating sickness. Now more than ever, we know that health is an issue of social justice, a right that belongs to all people, not just a commodity to be delivered on the basis of finances. A link for direct contributions to the clinic should be on your screen. All of your offerings to our community partners and to First Church will be gratefully received. And now, as always, but especially at this time when our interdependence is so evident, thank you for your generosity.
Thank you, Frogwater. So glad you could be with us this morning. And I'm glad you all could be with us too. It's really good to be together. These closing words are by Francisco X. Alarcón, and I think they speak to what is needed from us to be fully present in this moment, in this movement. May our ears hear what nobody wants to hear. May our eyes see what everyone wants to hide. May our mouths speak our true faces and hearts. May our arms be branches that give shade and joy. Let us be a drizzle, a sudden storm. Let us get wet in the rain. Let us be the key, the hand, the door, the kick, the ball, the road. Let us arrive as children to this huge playground, the universe. May we watch Reverend Jennifer extinguish our flaming chalice in our beautiful sanctuary, and then listen to more great music by Frogwater for our postlude.